to me, the internet has always been the thing for the free. But is it still for the free? Or are we increasingly being monetized as users of the internet? And if so, what can we do about it? Welcome to Thread Talks. My name is Lieuwe Jan Koning, and here from headquarters at Ontoit, we talk today with Professor Bart Jacobs, and I'm really excited about it. Let's get on to it.
Welcome to Thread Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
Our guest of today, it's Professor Bart Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, welcome. He is the Professor of Computer Security, Privacy and Identity at the Radboud Universiteit of Nijmegen. He's also a member of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences. And he is, in our country and beyond, very well known in participating, because he participates in the public debates. He did a TED Talks, educating us all on the subject of privacy, for example. And he has an advisory role to the Parliament of the Netherlands. He's also the initiator of a few tools that actually are created with the proper privacy in mind, such as an authentication app. It's called Yivi. We're going to talk about it. Another thing, a social platform called PubHubs. Also built on values that we should probably embrace in every software solution that we create. We're going to talk about that as well. And in 2021, he won the Stevin Prize, which is a prestigious award for top researchers, and is dubbed the Dutch Nobel Prize. So who else do we want to talk to if this is the subject? Mr. Jacobs, once again, welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to talk to you about a couple of examples of things that happen on the internet that we should be, every individual should not choose to do. And for example, we're talking about you can download WhatsApp or Facebook or all those applications, and all your data is out there. Huh? How bad is it, you think? Is it how safe is the internet for your children?
Maybe it's good to talk about Facebook in this respect for a moment. You say all your data is out there. My topic of research is security and privacy. Mm-hmm. Let me say, Facebook is very good in security, but very bad in privacy. Mm-hmm. And it collects all the data and it secures them very well. Mm-hmm. And it regulates who has access to these data. But of course, Facebook is very bad in privacy because it uses the personal data to steer the messages that we get to see on the platform, to try to pump our timeline full with advertisements to try and make us buy things that we don't really want to have, but they just get revenue out of the advertisement. And it's really, I consider it a manipulation network. Mm-hmm. It's not only, it's primarily a commercial manipulation network, but we've seen it's also a political manipulation network, as we've seen in the elections, the first election of Trump, or basically ever since on the internet.
Yeah, so it's abused more than it's used if you look at the bigger picture then.
I would say yes, from a societal picture.
Yeah,
from a societal picture, I would consider it as a very harmful, as a company and as a very harmful tool. I can see on an individual level that it has certain advantages to be in contact with former friends or classmates or family members who live across the world. But there are also other tools to stay in contact with them.
Yeah, indeed. And personally, I hate it if my data is sold. So but I have to admit, I have WhatsApp on my phone, and the reason, well, actually, WhatsApp in the beginning was for free, and it was a European company, and it has since been sold to.
I don't think WhatsApp ever was a European company, but
okay, it's in Eastern Europe. But maybe I'm mistaken. I thought it was Estonia.
I think you're mixing up with the video calling service that was bought by Skype.
Yeah. Okay, but it gained a lot of traction initially also, and the problem I have with it is that I need to communicate in certain. For example, we have in my in the city where I live, around we have what we call buurt app.
Neighborhood app. Yeah.
Neighborhood app indeed. And I actually, when the 10th time there was big news about Meta abusing all your data, etc., I actually started a debate there and started a Signal group. But what you see there's always the few people that don't want to make the transition. And I mean, to me, it's obvious that Signal is much better.
Yeah.
But I look at the business model.
Whose business model?
The business model of Signal.
Yeah.
I actually pay a voluntary subscription.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
But
what is your point?
My point is, I hate it that I still have my app in WhatsApp installed, but I kind of need to. I
cut yourself free from. I'm on Signal, not on WhatsApp, and people know this.
And your life is great.
My life is better.
It's better.
It's good in that sense. I mean, it's in the end a personal decision.
Yeah, true.
You make yourself dependent on people who make their own choice.
Mm-hmm.
In general, in my life, I try to make myself not dependent on people who make wrong choices.
And I want to try to.
So I want to push it back to you.
Yeah.
You're weak in
Point
this.
taken. Point taken. Yeah, point. Can you help me, please? Because
you have to toughen up yourself. This is maybe a character building session, but I mean, just leave it.
I'm all for it. Yeah,
just leave it.
Just quit your account. Which I did with Facebook, by the way.
Okay,
that's one step.
One point for you.
That's But WhatsApp is. I asked for. Can you help me? For example, I go into discussions and we talk about even metadata. So who I send a message to, for example, that is valuable to a company. But I have a hard time explaining this. Why that is? Can you explain a little bit? Why is that valuable, and why is the problem that I share with that I would publish? Who I send messages to, for example.
There are various things. So WhatsApp has improved considerably throughout the years. So one big step was that it introduced end-to-end encryption, which means that Meta, the company behind it, can no longer read the content of messages that people send to each other. That is a very big thing. But what they can see is a social graph. They can see who communicates with whom. And this data is already very important. And what is also, what the data they also get is the address book information. So I'm not in your address book, I think, but suppose I were, and you would, then my address data would all go to Facebook, even though I'm not, I'm very much against this. But by your choice to open up your address book to Facebook, they get my data as well.
Yeah, you bring a good point. If anyone has a phone with your number in it and they use WhatsApp, that number is also there, so including your name probably.
So that
and
maybe you added my birthday or whatever kind of details, or my wife is, or how many children I have. That all goes to Meta, and it's other people making these decisions about me, which I really abhor. I find it terrible that it happens in such a way.
Yeah, I talked to my niece, and she doesn't care.
I don't know your niece, but
no.
I don't know if I want to know her.
Probably not then, not on Facebook.
Yeah,
but what do I tell her then? Because she wouldn't listen. I mean, she says I don't care if they know my birthday because it's not.
Well,
the worst thing that could happen, she says, is they send me flowers on my birthday.
Yeah, okay. But so I'm not in the business of trying to convince everyone. There are still people out there who smoke. Smoke is very bad.
Yeah.
It's very bad. But most people do know this. And if people really insist on continuing to smoke, I mean...
despite knowing why it's bad for you. But my point is, can you help our viewers also to explain? Because if you want to explain why smoking is bad for you, well, you have a really high chance of cancer and you will die. I mean, if that's not enough, then I don't know. But what is that same story for installing WhatsApp?
The story is maybe limited if you only use WhatsApp. But WhatsApp is part of Meta, which is a huge company that has huge advertising networks all over the place. It can recognize you and then at other places on the internet. Certainly, if you're also on Facebook, it connects what you do on WhatsApp, all the connections you have there, and from the people you are connected with, they can distill an image of what kind of person you are, and then try to manipulate you more with certain advertisement. Some people say, I don't mind if I get manipulated commercially. I like to watch advertisement. Okay, that's possible, but not me. If your niece likes to watch advertisement and be pushed in a certain direction, okay. Some people want to live their life like this. I have the feeling I would like to have a bit more control over the choices in my life.
Have you ever do you have some insight in whether this is a cultural thing also? Is it for example, are people in the Netherlands on average or in Luxembourg or in the United States more privacy aware? Is that part of the equation?
I'm not a sociologist, so I don't.
You must have wondered about it.
No, but there are big differences between the US and Europe. Let me go to that level then. In Europe, privacy, data protection is a fundamental right.
We have on our podcast a treasure hunt, we call it. Let me briefly attend to that. So for the first 200 people that send the code that I'm about to announce to code@thread-talks.com, they will receive a T-shirt that you can show off to all your friends. And the code is 110425. Now that we have that under our belt, I would like to pick your brain on. You have solutions, and that's what I really like about your work.
Partial solutions, okay.
Okay. So you have.
So I do work on alternatives.
Yes, exactly, on alternatives, because to me, so the fact that Signal is there in the first place makes sure that that there is an app that is easy to use and I can tell my mom about and she will actually install it and can handle it. That's crucially important to me. You have a few of those, and I'd like to I mentioned them in the introduction as well. Yivi, for example, could you explain? Well, first of all, what the goal of it is?
Yeah, so Yivi is exists already for more than 10 years. It came out of scientific research at my research group in the university. We started working on attribute-based authentication and the cryptography that is behind it, which is very interesting, which based on zero-knowledge proof, but I'll skip the details here. But this attribute-based authentication was certainly at the time novel. And attributes are properties of all of us. I'm here, you're over 18, this is your email address, this is your phone number, your physical address, etc. These small properties of you are called attributes. And in many situations, authentication, proving who you are, can be done via attributes. So if you want to play a hefty game online, you have to prove maybe that you're over 16 or 18. That is just one attribute that you have to prove. If you order a book online, you have to disclose your physical address for delivery, but not much more. And basically, maybe email address for confirmation. But your name is not really needed in these kind of things. So this attribute-based technology really allows data minimization, which is one of the basic principles in Europe's data protection law, the GDPR. And so there are technologies to really support this privacy-friendly approach. And this is what I'm really interested in. So we built a prototype app at the university. I set up a non-profit foundation to roll out this technology. This process is slow, but the Yivi app is still there. I'm working now with a company in the Netherlands to develop this further. But what I consider as a very gratifying influence, 2 years ago, the European Union has decided to introduce identity wallets in Europe, which are such apps on your phone that contain attributes, which are attribute-based. So they looked very carefully at what we did with Yivi. This had a big influence there. So for me as an academic, that is huge. That is really...
It's just not a theory, but you actually implemented it and showed the example. And now people follow it.
So on the one hand, Yivi exists as a product. It has about, I don't know, it's so privacy friendly that we don't know how many people run it. But
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's more than 100,000. So it's not the whole country yet, but it's substantial. It goes beyond friends and family, so to say. So it has a practical impact, although not a real great breakthrough yet. But it also has indirect impact, where we see that people start copying this. Where they see they are good ideas.
And that's your bigger goal, probably, not necessarily this.
Yeah, so Jiffy itself as a product is a little bit my baby, so to say. So I would hope that Jiffy will be the dominant app in the world, also because it's open source, transparent, etc. It's really done in the right way, I would say. But in the end, if an other app which works like Jiffy takes over and offers this kind of privacy-friendly opportunities to people in a transparent open source way, I can also live with that.
I'd like to dive a little bit deeper in the technology here, if I may. So you mentioned that I know the app. So what it does, it will actually give you full control of those attributes that you want to share. So if you log on with EV, it will tell you can say, okay, just my email address, or just the fact that I'm over 18, not my full birthday. Right?
So it's a little bit subtle. So if you as an organization, if your company wants their customers to authenticate online with Jiffy, you as a company decide what these customers have to disclose. So you can ask, and this happens via QR code, you say, I want your name, email address, and maybe something else, maybe your physical address.
So to be clear, it is to authenticate users so they don't have to use Okta or LinkedIn or those.
But this can be done via Jiffy. But it's you as the verifying party that decides which attribute gets
so suppose I have
please let me continue for a moment. If I go to your website and I use my Jiffy app, I get in my app a request, this company wants to see this data from me. And I can say yes or no. There's a little bit of choice I have. If you ask for an email address, I can maybe select one of
which
three.
One?
But so I do have control in the end that I say yes or no, but it's you who ask me what to disclose.
Yeah, and
so it's not so much that I can go somewhere and I decide I show this but not that.
And suppose I have a web shop and I sell liquor, for example. So I need to know the minimum age, and then I don't need the passport or whatever with the date of birth, but just the attribute that I'm over 18.
Yeah, Jiffy is very suitable for these kind of applications.
So now my question, but where does the data come from then?
Yeah, so indeed, Jiffy and all such other apps, also the European wallet IDs that are coming up, need to collect this data from a trusted source. So the way it works with Jiffy, you need to go to a government website, Dutch government website. You need to log into this website in a regular way with DigiD, the system we use in the Netherlands. And then the website gives you these attributes in your Jiffy app. So they are located only in your Jiffy app. Technically, some of your listeners may like this. What this government issuing organizations also do is put a digital signature on these attributes so that if I disclose them somewhere else, the receiving party can see, hey, it's digitally signed by this government organization, so the source is clear.
Yeah, and what is the server part of Jiffy?
What do you mean the server part?
It's a trick question. The SaaS, you have the client on the app on the machine.
Yeah.
What about the server side? Do you keep track of stuff?
In that sense. So let me say tell this as a contrast. So in identity management, there are basically two approaches: centralized and decentralized. Let's take Facebook. Facebook offers a login also. Suppose you want to log in at your local newspaper and it offers a Facebook login. You go to the website of your newspaper, you get redirected to Facebook, you log in at Facebook, and Facebook tells the website who Facebook thinks you are. That means all logins go via Facebook. Facebook offers this for free because what they get out of it, they can see of all the Facebook users where they go in, and they can build up a even
they know
bigger,
exactly what you're interested in now.
Precisely. They can offer an even more detailed picture of you. The way it works with Jiffy, suppose this newspaper has a Jiffy login on its website, and I go there with my Jiffy app. The website talks directly to the app. It doesn't talk to the government organization that gave me my address data, for instance, but the communication is purely between the app and the website. There's one technical point, and maybe that is what you're hinting at. The way the Eevee app works is it uses a very secret cryptographic key. And protecting such a secret key is difficult. Right? You can put them on a smart card, you can put them in a secure enclave in a phone, but that is often very phone dependent and highly regulated.
I don't really trust those.
Precisely. What we did at Eevee, we used a technical trick. So we split up the private key in two parts. So half of it is on the phone, half of it is at the central server run by Eevee. Now, if I want to disclose something with my Eevee app, say again this newspaper where I want to log in, my app briefly talks with the central server to check, to get the rest of the phone. Or at least the way we have done it is technically homomorphic encryption. So the key is not combined, but on both sides, part of the computation is done in a privacy-friendly manner. And then the app can reveal the relevant attributes. The server sees that my app is used, but doesn't see where, and also does not see which attributes I disclose. So in that sense, really, the whole setup.
The data itself is only on the app, if I hear correctly. Yeah.
So if
Let's
I lose,
be clear about that.
Yeah. So that is intentional indeed. Yeah. And if I lose my phone, or if I buy a new phone,
start over.
I have to start over. I have to. But I mean, this is generally if you get a new phone, you have to reinstall all your apps, and maybe you have to collect the data. If you have an app for satellite navigation with local maps, you also have to reload all the local maps.
I don't think it's a disadvantage at all. Yeah. Oh, it's actually it's a marvelous technology, if you ask me. I mean, there's indeed a little bit of a key on the server side, on your server side, that is in itself worth nothing.
Precisely, that's the idea. Yeah.
And so the only tracking you could do is indeed how many times do you use it?
Yeah, precisely.
And from which country, maybe, if you would want to.
No, I don't think you see the country. What you could do, what you could even do, so if you really lose your phone, someone steals your phone, and you're really worried about that, you can log in at our central server and block the center part of the key.
Oh, yeah.
So that it cannot be used.
You can withdraw you give it
it offers some level of protection.
Yeah.
But the central server does not know where you are. So if you're confused and you say, I don't remember if I logged in there or there, and you call us, we cannot tell you.
Yeah, but that's a feature. That's a big feature.
We consider that a feature.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, yeah, that's great. So, and that means that any user can download the app. That's for free worldwide. If you want to be a supplier and allow your users to authenticate with this, we should promote this.
Yeah,
right.
I'd say, but I should say the app becomes usable only when it gets connected to valuable sources where it can get attributes. So in the Netherlands, it's connected to the national government, so the citizen administration is also connected to university database. So if you're a student or a staff member of a university in the Netherlands, you can also get your data in there. You can prove you're a student.
Yeah, which means that you can use Eevee to connect to those systems of the university. That's what you mean by connect.
No, you can collect data there. But for instance, you can go to collect data. And if there's, for instance, suppose on your company website, you want to give a discount.
Suppose I want to do that. Where do I start?
Suppose you want to give a discount to students. So there is a student attribute that people can reveal, proving that they are a student.
Yeah.
And I need to answer your question. If you want to run Eevee, two ways to do it. You can run a Eevee server yourself. It's open source software. You can install it, and then a reasonable programmer has it up and running in an hour. And then you can integrate this in your web page. But you have to run the server and keep it up to date, etc. There are also commercial companies that offer this as a service. So you have to put something in your website, and then they do the authentication and tell you back. These companies are called identity brokers. They're a bit like payment brokers as well.
Yeah.
And I expect this to be a growing market in the next few years. for these identity brokers.
But it sounds like it's very simple to do.
It is very simple to do.
So we should spread the word a lot.
Sorry?
We should spread the word because
certainly.
I'm sure there's people listening now that don't know about.
Yeah, so it can be used already in many situations. But I should say, if there are people, international listeners, and so if you're in the US, I mean, Yiffy is not connected to a US citizen database.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. That's another problem. But suppose at state level or whatever. What can be added globally in your Yiffy app is your email address. What can be added?
You just put it in yourself. You're your own authority there.
What happens is we have a website. You put in you type in your email address. We send a one-time code to your email address. You type it in as a confirmation. Then you get a QR code and you can load it into your app.
It's a very certain way of knowing someone's email address.
Precisely. So we do the check for you. So other websites don't have to check.
Most companies only need the email address.
Yeah, precisely. Another thing is also in Europe we also offer mobile phone number. The way it works is the same way. You go to a website of ours, you type in your mobile phone number, we send you a text message with a one-time code. If you can type this in, you can scan the QR code, and we offer this only in Europe at this stage for financial reasons.
I understand, yeah.
And
I know exactly what you mean. We also have to send messages worldwide. So.
Precisely. So what is coming up soon, I hope before the end of the year, is that people can also hold their passport to their phone, and that Yiffy extracts their personal data from their passport, and so that can then be used selectively in certain situations.
But that's a lot of countries.
That is a lot of. That works basically for the whole world. It works for all countries that have a chip in their passport, which is all countries basically. So that will be a breakthrough internationally. And I think Yiffy could be very useful in situations. You see there's more and more pressure now that age verification should be added to various websites. And for instance, Australia was the first to do this, and they said for social media. And Australia said these companies should decide themselves how to do this.
So that means...
But that means, sorry to interrupt, but if you leave this up to Facebook, they will come up with a way of checking this, which gives them even more data. Yiffy offers an alternative, open source, privacy friendly, etc., that can soon be used worldwide for this age verification.
Okay, that's good news for everybody. So then that means that in the audience, every company that feels we need to advocate better privacy and allow our users to only share what they really want. They can actually use this.
Yeah,
and it's not that difficult.
No,
so we can start today.
They can start today. They can go to yiffy.app, the website. There's more information there. There's also contact.
We'll put it in the show notes, including the details we can find on the documentation. And I'm sure there's also people who really like to go nerdy on the security.
It's all on GitHub.
Cryptography.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. This is one thing, but this is not all. There's also the PubHubs. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, PubHubs is a more recent development. It's not as mature yet as Yiffy. PubHubs is an attempt to develop, let me say, a decent social network. Now, what is a decent social network? It has no advertisement. It has no profile of people. It has no plundering of people. It has no manipulation, etc. All the things that make people very uncomfortable about the current social networks, between quotes, because I don't consider them to be social. I consider them to be very harmful. So it is an attempt to try and do things in a decent way. But also there are some security and privacy thoughts behind this.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one thought behind this is also, if you go on Facebook and you post something there, basically you post to the whole world. And but that is not natural. Most of us talk among friends at work or at the sports club or whatever. So typically we have local conversations. Now, if you talk on Facebook, it's on the whole world. even though you intended only for small audiences. But it also means that the whole world can talk back to you.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of nasty people that are,
and they do,
and they do, and there are a lot of bad people out there. Young girls getting approached by various nasty characters. I don't want to expand on this. So the way we've set up PubHubs is that it focuses on local conversation, and now I can go a bit more into detail. So it's really different in setup. It's not meant as a competitor of Facebook. It's also not meant as a platform for cat videos and this kind of amusement. People who like cat videos should really stay on Facebook. But the way it works, so PubHubs has a central login based on Jiffy.
Of course.
Once you've passed the central login, you can go to different hubs. And once you're logged in, you can seamlessly step from one hub to the other. A hub may be run by a university, by a municipality, by a company, by a local library.
It's a bit like how Mastodon is set up.
A little bit, but Mastodon is more for short messages, but in principle it is similar.
It's the key thing here is that's distributed, so it isn't owned by a single party.
Yeah, that is true. So all these organizations, they run local instances of PubHubs, of a hub, as we call it. It involves its own software. It's based on Matrix. Matrix is an open source version of Slack, so it's a bit similar to Slack. But there is some identity management involved. If you've done this central login and you go to Hub 1, and we call it Hub 1, you get underwater a pseudonym. And if you enter Hub 1, it only knows you with this pseudonym. If you go to Hub 2, you get a different pseudonym automatically. To Hub 3, you get again a different pseudonym. If you return to Hub 1, you get back your original pseudonym. So if you misbehave in Hub 1, they can block this pseudonym or block it temporarily or whatever. So what we wish to achieve is a combination of privacy and accountability, so that people who misbehave can really be addressed in a certain way. Now, within a hub, it's a bit like in Slack. In Slack, they're called channels, where the conversation happens. In our version, they're called rooms. Doesn't matter very much. What we have added is authentication to rooms. So certain rooms in such a hub contains many rooms, and certain rooms are open to everyone. But the organization running the hub can also say, for this room, you have to disclose your email address, and you can only get in if you're on a list of email addresses. Or for a neighborhood room, you have to disclose your postal code, and only if it's this postal code, you can go into this neighborhood room. Or this room is for people younger than 18, or older than 18, or whatever. Or this is only for the directors of your company, or only for the HR department. So you can really have secure rooms, as we call them. And this is a feature that other networks don't have, this authentication built in. And also, this offers a lot of possibilities. Rooms also have moderators. And moderators have a lot of flexibility. So in principle, the discussion in a room can be based on pseudonyms, so everybody can participate. But suppose I'm a moderator and I see you going to the edge, I can send a message to you and say, I want you to disclose your name to me and your address if you want to continue. Otherwise, I block you here.
Yeah.
You see, so there are many buttons that you can...
Very flexible in that sense.
It's very flexible. It's really a new idea and a new approach in these kind of things. Yeah. Again, the question is just like with Jiffy, will others copy it? Or will this really become...
So how is this used?
How is this used?
Currently?
Yeah, so we are still in the pilot phase. We're still in the pilot phase. I said we're still cautious. And a very interesting user community that we're working with are patient organizations. And in the Netherlands, there are like 500-600 patient organizations. Every disease, illness has its own
support group. Yeah.
has its own support group. These the support groups are mostly online, but sometimes also in the physical world, and they're often very valuable for the people in there. So they can share their experience, get advice, etc. But you can probably feel that many things are privacy friendly there.
I'm always astonished about a support group on Facebook.
Yeah, precisely.
But I would not want to participate in that.
Well, come to PubHubs.
Yeah, exactly.
Precisely. So the idea is indeed, if you look at these patient organizations, the smaller ones are on Facebook, very uncomfortably themselves. They are on Facebook. The bigger ones have built their own ad hoc network, but also they see this is not their core business to build a network. So they're happy if we provide a generic infrastructure that they can use. But this is just one application scenario. Can also be used, for instance, for municipalities, where people can go there online, get some general information in an open room, but also where they can, let's say, ring a bell and get into a one-on-one conversation with someone from the municipality. And so in an authenticated channel, so that the municipality knows who it's talking to. And let me add one thing. So this offers the option that a municipality can say to its citizen, you need a new driver's license. You can come by physically to a counter, or you can do it online via PubHubs.
Yeah, you're authenticated by a passport, no less.
The
only thing you cannot do is apply for a passport.
Again, yeah.
Okay, but what for businesses maybe also? I mean, what if you want to have a community with your customers and maybe if there's a new feature that you want to discuss with a few customers? Or
that is indeed possible, but we don't have advertisement.
No.
So indeed, it could be.
What I mean is you have a conversation with your suppliers or your customers.
Certainly. So it can be used. So we aim for is, on the one hand, professional contacts and professional authentication. A law office that wants to communicate with its customers via video call, and you have to
lawyers communicate with Office 365 and all their sensitive
but it's
data.
Non-authenticated, It's non-authenticated because you don't know who's on the other side.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
Sorry?
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Doctors, when they talk to patients, they have to authenticate the patient before they can share medical details.
Yeah, by law.
By law, indeed. There are many situations where this is compulsory, or at least where it's very desirable to do it in this way. But also it's meant for, let's say, cultural organizations, libraries. So libraries who want to, let's say, organize a local discussion or some cultural festival or a book discussion, and they really want to talk to a local community, and they want some way to close it off to keep out the bad people who want to disrupt these kind of meetings. And not so much because it's so private or security sensitive, but many organizations, when they go online, they are so hindered by people who are really just out there to disrupt these kind of activities. So it's good to have a little bit some possibility to close the door a bit.
Yeah, understand. Yeah. So what if there is a company that wants to offer this to its customers or its user group? How can you download it, or do you have to talk to?
There is a website, PubHubs.net.
We'll put it in the show notes as well.
Very good. They can go to there. There's a contact address. They can contact us. In principle, already they can download the whole thing. Everything is also on GitHub, but they need to come under this central login umbrella. And for this, they need to get a private key from us to participate in all of this.
There's probably some legal work.
There's some legal work there as well. We're still developing this, so we're working with a few organizations that we know that have gotten this key. If there are organizations who are really interested to scale this up, to help us also scale this up, do contact us. We like to cooperate with others. It comes from a university that has to, now it's in the process of moving out of this university. I like to organize it in some steward ownership style. not run as a commercial company, but I do see the benefits of commercial incentives to get certain things up and running and off the ground. But within a framework, this whole PubHubs, just like the EFI, is really focused on public values.
Yeah, and I think it also a lasting technology. That's what I like about it, because there's also Blue Sky, for example. Blue Sky better than Twitter, you might say, but it's still a company. So, and you have got to keep them. Maybe in my experience, every company at some point gets owned by VMware or IBM or
so
Meta.
Indeed, organizing it.
It's almost like Linux in a foundation. Safeguarded for the future.
Although keeping it purely in the non-profit sector is maybe not the most efficient way to do it. So I like this idea of steward ownership to organize it in such a way. And I'm happy to talk to other people. I meet quite a bit of enthusiasm. And of course, the question is, will it really scale? We'll see, but it offers really functionalities for dedicated sectors, which are not available on current social networks between quotes.
It's great insights that I think for many viewers are refreshing. It's a different way of looking at things.
I mean, what drives me in these kind of things is also to show there are alternatives. And there is a choice. We don't have to do things necessarily the way they are invented in Silicon Valley. They like to present them as if that's by law or by nature the way how things should develop. But there are also choices behind how they do things, and their choices are driven by their own commercial interests.
Yeah. I want to talk about the returns in a minute. I have one question before that, and that is, we're talking about, you show here that privacy by design is really possible, right?
Certainly, it's possible.
What are other success factors? It's a difficult question, because we all touched upon it a little bit. I mean, big tech has a strong arm. They have marketing everywhere, and they try to everybody reads lobbying. We read about all the algorithms. Actually, people in Silicon Valley that I know, those are the biggest advocates of not having their children. For the children not to have a smartphone. They know
the nasty technology that's behind it.
So what is there? This is not something you can solve with technology, right?
I don't know precisely what you mean by this, but there is at some level political choice needed here. To go back to the example of smoking. We as organizations have said we start taxing smoking, discouraging people, putting nasty images on cigarette packages, and so to make clear to people this is not good for you.
Which
social media?
We're not there 100% there yet, but the amount of people that smoke.
What are currently called social media, between quotes, once again. They're also very addictive, and especially the European Parliament is working on legislation to address especially this addictive character, especially for youngsters. So it's really bad for you.
We actually in one of the next episodes we have an interview with Bart Groothuis, who's a big advocate of these things, and he's working on the new legislation in the spring. That's in the next episode. So, do you think that the role of the government should be much better played out? They should strong arm much more and make laws to forbid things and all that.
So when you say the government, is of course the question: what is the government, Dutch government, or at the European level?
Yeah, probably all of them. The most effective one. I don't care which one.
So at least at the European level, Europe is already rather active in this area to try and legislate things. It's often said that Europe is a legislative power and not so much technology power. The balance is somewhat gone there. And I think we should also really invest in technology in Europe that adheres to our values in Europe, that supports our way of understanding privacy. So it really involves investment also in technology here. Governments have a role there. I'm not someone saying that government should run something like PubHubs. I'm very much in favor of civil society initiatives together with companies which have a societally motivated agenda.
Yeah, so the governments then have to enforce the rules, and which is good for the health of the citizens,
certainly,
which is their task.
Certainly, and they can also set an example, be launching customers. For instance, I find it very problematic that many government departments in the Netherlands are still on Twitter/X. They also should set an example there, and I understand the reasoning. They want to be where people are, but they can also all move to Mastodon. Like you should leave WhatsApp and tell all your people in your surroundings, it's a different world, you change. I'm not no longer adapting to your wrong standards.
Yeah, I can imagine as a politician, indeed you need to get those votes. And if the votes are all on...
No, it's a choice, but also it's a clear choice. You also express certain values by saying, I don't want to be associated
but if nobody reads it, I can imagine their struggle.
I don't want to be associated with these bad practices.
Yeah.
And I think more generally, we've ended up in Europe in a situation that our information and decision space, it's controlled by the tech bros of Trump. They control it. They control what we get to see. They control via these AI tools what decisions are being taken here. I find that deeply, deeply problematic. Also because these tech bros of Trump, they have a very strong anti-European, anti-democratic agenda.
Yeah, we saw support in the German elections for anti-democratic parties that were favored in the algorithms of X.
Yeah, precisely. So they run our information. They run our information space. We keep on organizing elections here in Europe, whereas a substantial part of the population gets manipulated by these anti-democratic parties. I think the European governments and the European Union itself should be tougher on this.
Yeah, well, China TikTok is banned was banned for a little while in the United States for the same reasons.
Yeah, but that is not a serious example because Trump really brought it back in, and I think it was only 2 weeks. So that's so what we saw in Europe the end of about a year ago with the presidential elections in Romania, I think it was. I'm now doubting Romania, Bulgaria, no Romania. Where certainly out of nothing, a populist candidate came to position 1 via an active campaign on TikTok, which by the security services there was identified as coming from Russia. Now, TikTok let this happen. The fact that TikTok let this happen is against European laws, against the DSA, the Digital Services Act. So the European Union, I think, could forbid or at least fine TikTok for this in a very, very serious way. There are investigations going on, but I think we should really be more assertive towards these platforms. They are devastating our information space here. They are aggressive against our way of life. How did we let this happen? How did we get there? And of course, the next question is, how do we get out of there?
Could you answer that?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not
laws.
Laws help, investments in our own technology help, but first the will to change this, to try and get out of these
political will, you mean?
Yeah,
or individuals that choose differently, choose technology.
It's on all levels. It's political. It's in government organizations, in companies, and at an individual level. We should decide to be no longer in these kind of toxic, manipulative relationships.
Clear. Thank you. Before we close off, because we are running out of time a little, because there's so much to discuss here. But maybe let's we cover 2 examples of alternatives to that are not. Well, mainstream isn't maybe the good word, but not top of mind of people.
Alternative. Okay.
Yeah. What if everything you said today and you are for an IT manager or a CISO, and it really appeals to you that we should think this way. Where can I go to? Is there like how do I find these solutions? Apart from listening to this podcast,
so
that's not enough.
There are certain websites with European alternatives. I can't forget the precise name, but I'm sure you can.
European-alternatives.eu. We'll put them in the show.
Yeah. Please put them under there. But I would say if you run a company in Europe, you should really be careful about your business continuity.
Mm-hmm.
The world is governed by autocratic, unpredictable old men. I mean, if the conflict with Russia heats up a little bit more, the first thing Russia will do is start pulling transatlantic cables.
Mm-hmm.
Will your company still run?
In Europe, yes. We have our own data centers. Yeah,
you have your own data centers. Very good. Yeah. Our university will have to shut down. All right. So Microsoft says we keep all Europe all data.
I'm not too sure, by the way, because the SIDN has their administrative systems also in Amazon, I believe. So for the .nl website, stichting domeinregistratie.
No. That's they have that in the Netherlands. It was more.
Yeah, the core systems are, but
the customer. But that's a different.
I think we will have issues. But
let me. So you will have issues. Let me expand on the university. So Microsoft says all your data is in Europe. But at the university, we use these authenticator apps.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they go via the US. So it may be the case that our data is here in Europe. We cannot access it because we cannot.
Same story then, yeah.
So cutting cables is a serious concern. The total unpredictability of Trump is a big concern. I don't know if you know the ICC case in The Hague, where Trump forbid U.S. companies to supply to the international court because he didn't like the court. Now they can't use their email anymore. Yeah. Right? So Dutch
they've since moved to what is it? Proton Mail, I think, in Switzerland.
Yeah, Dutch judges still have to decide in the next round about whether the Dutch should deliver parts of the F-35 plane to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose Dutch judges forbid this.
Mm-hmm.
And suppose Trump gets angry and he says no longer Microsoft service to the Dutch legal system. It shuts down.
Yeah, even if you're hosted in Europe.
Even if you're how did we
end up here?
How did we get there? How did we get in such a situation? And so this is slowly sinking in with more and more people.
Mm-hmm.
And more organizations are starting to look around in Europe and in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, you find hosting companies that can do your email.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is not rocket science. So I would certainly advise many companies to at least approach these companies in the Netherlands as a backup service. Right? Can you run email for us? What other service can you do? Calendar. I mean, there is Nextcloud. I don't know if you're Nextcloud.
We're a user.
It's an open source alternative for Microsoft Office. Not fully. It's not as well developed, but the basic functionality is there. You can run it.
Big features, it will always run.
It will always run. You can run it locally, and you're in control. Or you can ask a company to run it for you. If you don't like that company, you can switch to another company. You are in control.
It's freedom of choice and be able to pick up your data and put it somewhere, and it's yours and to stay yours.
It's yours to stay, and you're not dependable on unpredictable autocrats who are running this world now.
And there are a lot of solutions. You mentioned European alternatives, and we also have privacytools.io, I think. We'll put them in the show notes as well. So there is a lot out there. It's just not well known. And the sales guys aren't banging on your door to try to sell it to you, and Microsoft is.
Yeah, that is, of course, these American IT companies have become so big, they invest heavily in lobbying, in support. They offer turnkey solutions. You want to have a device to the cloud-based service to run something on. You pull your credit card and you're there.
Make it easy.
They have
That's
made
what
it
Battery
very
Bear
easy.
says, eh? We should make it super easy. We have great technology everywhere, but we should make it super easy to consume.
Yeah, so indeed, more investments are needed. For instance, in Jiffy and also in PubHubs, we invest quite a bit in this user experience. We have designers involved. We know that is ultimately deciding for the larger public whether that
that's
will
a good non-technical factor indeed.
So I'm all in favor of security and privacy, but what we need is usable security and privacy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's really a different thing.
That there needs to be a lot of effort. The same with Linux system. I mean, it doesn't look as good to many.
I think Microsoft looks horrible.
It did a good job of deteriorating.
It's terrible. I don't understand that Word has become the world standard. The interface is so terrible. I find at this stage that Linux offers better interface than Microsoft.
I agree.
Does.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's settle that as a clear
Thank
point.
you very much for all these insights of today. And in a way, it is depressing that there's so much work to do. But in another way, you showed a lot of roads to us that we can walk that lead into...
there are alternatives. You just have to choose them.
And if you care about privacy, and we all should,
and
this is certainly what you should... I always leave that out because it's so default to me, being in a security company. Professor Jacobs, thank you very much for all your insight of the day.
Thanks for having me.
Hope to see you another time on our podcast. And to our viewers, thank you very much for listening in. If you like this, please like this video because it makes sure that more people learn about all these privacy issues and solutions. And while you're there, press the subscribe button. We would appreciate it. And for you, that would mean that the next episode of Threat Talks will be in your inbox very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by Onto It Cybersecurity and AMS-IX. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.